All right, what do you got? I got one thing.
I got one thing.
Wow, a great ratio. Mine is longish.
Okay,
I can
let's
go
start
first.
yours because mine is shortish, which means we should do the long and then
All
see
right.
what's left for the back end for the short.
Fair enough. All right. So, a first of its kind lawsuit. Nature is suing to protect itself.
Is this the
So,
magazine or the
the
actual environment?
environment. The environment.
Ooh.
So, Lake Mary Jane in Central Florida is in danger from human development that would turn 1,900 acres of wetlands, pine, flatlands, and cypress forest into homes, lawns, and office buildings. The question being asked is, should nature have legal rights? The lake is connected to several neighboring natural features, including canals, a marsh, other lakes, the Everglades, and more. In Orange County, Lake Mary Jane, together with Lake Hart and the Crosby Island Marsh and two boggy streams, filed a case in Florida State Court that the development would adversely impact them. Chuck O'Neill, founder of Speak Up Wakiva, I believe that's how it's pronounced, an organization named for a river that runs near his home. And until recently, he was also the president, the chairman, and the director at large of a group called the Florida Rights of Nature Network, is the co-plaintiff. So he filed it on behalf of nature. Similarly, a number of animals have preceded Mary Jane to court, including an elephant at the Bronx Zoo, neglected pets, an entire species like the Palilla, an endangered bird in Hawaii, that successfully sued for allowing feral goats to graze on its last remaining bit of habitat. And now I do want to take a moment because this popped up in the news recently about this Bronx Zoo elephant. So Happy the elephant is the name of the Bronx Zoo elephant. Happy passed the mirror test, which is where they put an X on the elephant's forehead and then show her the X, her head, her body in a mirror. And Happy the elephant was actually repeatedly using its trunk to touch the X that was taped onto its forehead, indicating awareness of herself. And advocates are saying that she has constitutional rights and shouldn't be unlawfully detained without a court order, which they say in her current environment is similar to a prison cell. And instead, she needs to be with other elephants in a much larger elephant sanctuary. I will say that legal experts think it won't happen because their questioning is, where do you draw the line? Do your pets or your food sources now have human rights? Who will decide? And they don't think any judge is going to take that on. But other countries have ventured into this territory, but mainly focused on endangered species. But, and I don't know if you have anything on that, but Mary Jane is a unique case because those were living things and this is not. Okay. So the case, right? Is it overboard or is it overdue? And what came to mind for me when I was reading through all of this is ships and corporations have rights similar to a person. And if we depend on nature,
when they want to use it, when they want to be people, that is.
There you go.
They get to choose.
Well, it's nice to have the flexibility.
Yeah, it kind of is. I kind of wish I could be a corporation sometimes.
Give myself a golden parachute.
Among many other things.
Yeah. But we do depend on nature, right? And we are part of an ecosystem. In essence, work with and basically for nature. So why shouldn't nature have rights? We are nature. So environmental groups shared this sentiment, and the Florida Chamber of Commerce does not, and stated, your local lake or river could sue you, not on my watch. Go figure. So the notion that natural objects like woods and streams should have rights was first put forward about a half a century ago by Christopher Stone, a law professor at the University of Southern California. Each time there is a movement to confer rights onto some new entity, the proposal is bound to sound odd or frightening or laughable, Stone wrote. This is partly because until the rightless thing receives its rights, we cannot see it as anything but a thing for the use of us. What he means by that quote is that as long as natural objects were valued in terms of their worth to humans, they could legally be destroyed. So Stone cited the example of someone polluting a stream. People living downstream could take the polluter to court and perhaps win damages, but the waterway and the species dependent on it would never recoup their losses. unless they were protected by something like an endangered species list.
Mhm.
And when you think about ecosystems existing for tens of thousands of years or more, and it seems really arrogant that we just come along and destroy it, why shouldn't nature be protected? So in 2005, residents of Tamaqua Borough, apologies for that again, in eastern Pennsylvania were fighting a plan to dump toxic sludge in an open pit in town. And one of the members of this borough's town council attended a meeting with representatives of the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, which had been set up to help local groups battle such projects. The organization's leader at the time, a lawyer named Thomas Lindsay, had recently chanced upon Stone's article. It occurred to him that if trees, or in this case, of Tamaqua, ecosystems more generally had standing, then the town would have another legal tool to use in its campaign. He helped draft an anti-local sludge ordinance that, among many other things, declared it unlawful for any corporation or its directors to interfere with the existence and flourishing of natural communities. For the purpose of the ordinance, natural communities were to be considered persons. When the ordinance came up for vote in 2006, the town council was split 3-3. Tamaqua's, sorry, it might be that, mayor cast a tie-breaking vote in favor of the natural communities. He later said, "If I'm going to be sued, so be it." Good for him. So Mary Jane's state lawsuit itself was spurred by something that happened in 2020. So again, those were all local things, but this is the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was spurred by something that happened in 2020 when O'Neill drafted a Bill of Rights for the two rivers near Orlando that were eventually expanded to include all of the county's waterways.
Mm-hmm.
When voters went to the polls to vote if nature had a right to a healthy ecosystem, 89% said yes, and the county charter was amended.
That's astounding.
Isn't that amazing?
That's for that. That is very progressive of those townspeople. Look at that.
So that's the story. Local, like we said last episode. So that's the story.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This lake, environmentalists on its behalf, and really several waterways are suing so that they have some form of rights, so that we just can't continue to decimate nature. Because I don't know how much longer we can be ignorant to the fact that we are not apart from nature. We are not masters of nature.
Mm-hmm.
We are very much part of nature. We are part of a much larger ecosystem.
Right. Yeah.
And
100% agree. This reminded me of what they tried to do with Lake Erie. Do you remember that?
No.
They tried to make Lake Erie a person. They actually tried to. It's the same thing. It was struck down in court. So they I think it's like the state Supreme Court essentially ruled against it to say that it could not be a person. But yeah,
you can always try again.
It's been tried. It's been tried. Before.
So that was a state Supreme Court.
Yeah, I believe so.
So okay, so and then it's a state issue, and this is a different state doing it. Right. So that's interesting.
It's federal judge. I pulled it up real quick.
Oh, okay.
But that I don't know if that, but that doesn't mean it's not Supreme Court. It didn't go to. I don't think it went to the Supreme Court. Could be wrong. Need to reinvestigate it. But anyway, but yeah. So it's been tried. It's been tried before.
So do you have any thoughts or comments on that story?
No, I think it's fantastic. There's no way that we could be interdependent. There's no way we could be independent of nature, especially when it comes to a resource like drinking, like water, that has a myriad of effects if it is polluted or
completely wiped out. They want to develop it.
Out. Yeah. Exactly. Which it just has so many knock-on factors. So I think it's. I wish that there wasn't such opposition to it in the legal system. First off, I think that as per usual, corporations that want to dump or want to get rid of waste and want to do it cheaply happen to like to put it usually in poor neighborhoods where they think that there will be less pushback because people have less resources to fight back, and yeah, it usually ends up impacting the environment in adverse ways. And if certain elements of the environment, and that's the other thing, I cringe at the idea of the snowball. It's like, what? So a lake's a person. Does that mean my coffee table also has rights? So like that kind of nonsense. I bristle at that because it's so absurd. It's like your coffee table doesn't give life to a myriad of species.
To be fair, you already killed it.
It's dead. And it's dead. There you go, and it's dead. Whereas this is technically
Do we afford rights to like rotting corpses from 10,000 years ago? No, I think we call that archaeology. So
there you go. Oh, look at this guy. Look at the brain on this guy. What is it? Look at the brain on Brad. Exactly.
The big brain.
So exactly. So I see this completely on the same level. I don't think this is definitely an argument between the two of us. It would be interesting to hear from someone who is like, it is better to have the people have to combat these things once a river has been poisoned, or like Flint, it's something like that. It's like it's up to the people to do a class action lawsuit and to file for damages, which I think is absurd as well, because the thing is that the damage is not just to the people that live near the destroyed area. It's not about the current population. It's not about the current residents. It's about the future residents as well. And the only thing that will be there for hundreds of years is not the individuals that are suing today. It is the actual waterways. It is the lake. It is the rivers. It's the trees. They will be here long after the people that have been adversely affected have either moved away or died off. And so it makes more sense to, especially because of the way that we like to enshrine law. We like laws that are that come about that can last for generations. Sometimes they last too long, but at the same time, that's the way our system is built. We like laws that can last for hundreds of years, that could be tweaked and referred back to, and greatly entrenched in the ethos that is our cultural systems. And this is part of it. So, I mean, that's the thing. It makes more sense to be defending something that it can basically last beyond our current civilization. Even if this is the other thing. It's like our civilization could go up in smoke in 500 years. But the thing is, some of these mountains, these lakes, these rivers, they're going to still be here. So if there's anything that should be protected under law, it should be them. Personally, that's how I feel about it.
So, no, and those are all really good points. And I think it's easy for people to wrap their heads around pollution, toxicity, right? Those are things that kind of gross people out. Look at that toxic sludge. But the Lake Mary Jane example is really eradicating it. I mean, they'll drain it, they'll pave over it, and put up a neighborhood, and you'd never even know it was there. And that's not the same as dumping. Arguably, at least you can potentially recover from dumping. If people 50 years from now decided, hey, maybe we should remove this sludge and let nature reclaim itself. Mm-hmm. But if you destroy it completely and sterilize the area, that's a different story. But for some reason, seems almost more palatable. The complete eradication versus the slow death or the poisoning. So, in the name of progress and in the name of development, I can see the other side. Listen, we're a growing population. What do you want us to do? So what is the right of it?
The thing is, what's that old saying? Cut off your nose to spite your face kind of thing. I mean, it's getting rid of a major river that has that I'm trying to think back to Katrina. I feel like it might not be New Orleans. Is it California that has the problem? It's what I want to say here, because I can't think of the actual real world example, is that if you get rid of this river, perhaps this river is helping stay possible flooding, because the river can accumulate the water, and then it's like if you pave over it and you're not allowing any place for water to drain, who knows? I don't know the topography of this area, but
it could have a cooling effect. It could give off fog and provide moisture to nearby plants. Like we don't understand the ecosystem, right?
Well, I think that's what's really important, is that if you're going to do this and you're going to fight and say that this river is not essential and it doesn't have person rights, I think that you should have to have a trial in order to prove that, and that's also something that would come about if every lake and river and valley or whatever is given automatic personhood, automatic rights, autonomous rights, because then you could actually have a real debate, not something that is a faux debate, a debate where politicians are in corporations' pockets and the people are just complaining about it, and it's going to go through anyway because people want to be reelected in order to keep their form of livelihood. You have a real trial where it's like scientists have to come in, lawyers are hired, a judge is proceeding, maybe several judges, because there could be appeal processes, there could be a number of different things that go through it because it's a person, in order to say, does this person have the right to exist, or can we get rid of this river in the aid of human progress? Like, does the development of this area for people trump the rights of this river? And the thing is, I mean, it is weird because you would never do that with a human being necessarily, but again, everything can't be black and white. We have to have some sort of give and take. Everything's got nuance and it's got context. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything with provisional rights to rivers, trees, whatever, forests, any kind of area. And then to have that kind of due diligence to say, here's the back and forth, and here's the trial to say, well, is this necessary to be removed or not? I think, I don't know, because it's public, and I don't know, people can get involved. The reason people don't want to do it is because they know what the result will most likely be, which is the environmentalists would win out. Like, that's the thing. Most people don't really want to destroy nature these days. They just don't. Most people don't. People who work in certain industries do, but the average person is very, very happy to just either let bygones be bygones. If the river's here, the river's here. Ocean's here. They're like, I like to take my kids. I like to fish in the river. I think we could try something else. We could figure something else out if there was a initiative to have it go away. There's got to be something else, another workaround, another place that we could be doing what we're going to do. So that's why we're never going to do it, is because more often than not, it would become incredibly difficult to remove any plot of land, any kind of point of nature. It would be very difficult to develop it because they know that most people will not be for it. So,
yeah. And I mean, I don't even honestly, I was going to say, like, because I don't even know if I'm sure there are pros and cons for both, but it's not even like this isolated river, or I'm sorry, this isolated lake that is just like getting its water from the rain, and it really doesn't go anywhere. Nothing feeds into it. There are numerous, it sounds like, tributaries and other things downstream. Like, it is part of something larger. It's part of a
larger
network.
ecosystem. It's part of a huge network. So that's exactly. So you
just remove it without any vetting, without any level of investigation just seems crazy. But also, it sounds like a really good moment to rethink property development and city planning. I don't know if you can Frank Lloyd Wright the whole thing, where it's just like we'll become one with nature and weave things in and out of the elements without disturbing them. But I mean, maybe, creating houses 5 feet apart in a row in cul-de-sacs and like grid things and just decimating the local habitat and putting all lawns up and stuff. Maybe that isn't, there is
no maybe about that. It's not the right way.
Going by what we said in the beginning of the episode about the Second Amendment, how much longer are we just going to do it because we've always done it?
And we haven't always done it. It's a manifestation of the 50s
since we've done it. How much longer are we going to do it since we've done it? When it had no consideration for the ecology, it was just, how do you cram this many people into this area?
And a smaller population at the time, the
more lots they make out of the property given, the more money they make. So you want to give people just enough lawn so that it's like country living, but you still want to cram them all in. And
it's because I mean, again, you're looking at it. The thing is, the modern suburb was created as a means to allow white people to get away from the minorities in the cities and just have to go there to work, but they get to relax on the weekends away from all the undesirables. So I mean, given that, all right, that historical context there, that's a little TLDR, So I'm just saying that it's we know that this is not the right way to do it, and the thing is, we have the internet. We've been we've been in COVID for 2 years. Most people have been working from home, especially people who would have been commuting into a city, white collar workers. That is, essential. That's a whole nother patchwork of issues that need to be worked out there. But in terms of the people who live in the suburbs that commute to the cities, it's not necessary. And we know. And I mean, look, I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of money to be lost in that because we have commuter rails that are dependent on people using them. Various public transport is dependent on people actually using them, and it's not the public transportation's fault that it was built into a system that was essentially unsustainable, and we never realized it because no one was really looking at it. So that's my point. It's sort of like when you start talking about either people working from home or working more remotely as we embrace the technology that has been in existence since, I don't know, the better part of 20 years. So yeah, as people actually realize that the internet isn't located just in your office and it is something you could get at home as well. It's not just for watching Netflix. You could also do work on it as well. I think it's going to change the way that people look at needing a suburb, needing that kind of cramped space because it's just not necessary. What people need to be pushing in terms of legislation is to get internet infrastructure out into rural areas, which is possible. It's really being stymied by by utility companies that have a monopoly on the status quo of things. But if government were to overhaul things and to really start investing in that kind of infrastructure, then we could radicalize the way in which people think they have to live, which includes suburban living, includes urban living, making better use of the land, making more natural investments, people living within the confines of nature and not having to destroy it necessarily, because this country has tons of land that most people just do not live in. For one reason or another, most of it is infrastructure usually, and I think we could build a better world. It's an intergenerational planning that is necessary there, and as part of that is the ability to respect the rights of nature, the indigenous population, of creatures that dot the landscape, and your rivers and tributaries, and giving them the utmost respect that they deserve because they make this country great. That's what we should do. If our flag, we should make a river. The flag should just be just a river and land.
He's back on the flag wagon, folks. He's re-embraced the flag. It didn't take much. He's back on board.
It should be Yellowstone, but it's given back to the native peoples.
The states can have their flags as long as they're waterways.
That's right. As long as it's representing something, letting us know what's really up. But yeah,
the things most flags have on them. But
because stars and stripes. That's really that tells you a lot.
Generally tells
you a lot.
Incorporate some form of their natural environment into their flags. I think. Maybe bold statement. Someone.
Yeah, real bold statement.
I'm just thinking if California has a bear, right? I mean, it's like a thing.
Yeah. They got a bear. So that's part of nature. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that we respect our nature. We try to protect it. That's what Californians all about.
Curious what the bear protections are in California, but yeah. So I mean, I'm almost hearing you talk, and it's interesting to hear some of the things you were saying. What popped in my head was I wonder if there ever has been, and if not, I challenge there to be a firm, like an architectural firm, to take a stab at redesigning our country in terms of living space and give everyone space, but also reserve natural space between dwellings, and taking our current population and just spreading it out. Because right now we have vast areas of wilderness, but spreading it out with the infrastructure so you're not sticking people in the middle of a desert with nothing. But what would it look like with roads and water and electricity and the things that we all need, but spread out more evenly?
You mean Toulouse? It's like episode 35 of the pod.
No.
You want to check that out, everyone? Go back. Episode. It's the city of the future. It's just right back there.
I got my reservations about that one. But No, I'm just curious if anyone's ever, like you had shared the infographic, and we did a pod episode on it about
Mhm.
the what was it like was it a high speed rail? What a high speed rail network would look like
Oh
across the
yeah,
country. And
yeah.
so
Well, they're
something
actually
similar,
they got the funding for it. I mean, I don't know when that's going to come to
we'll see.
fruition, but yeah, something like that would be helpful already.
But
Yeah.
seeing, you take the cities and you break them down, like, as if we had a magic wand. If you
Mhm.
started with a blank slate, a pristine country, untouched by man, how would you build on top of it to accommodate 300 million people?
I mean,
Just curious.
I'm not an architect, but I mean, I bet you if we looked out there, there's someone who's had some interesting concept art or a firm that does concept art. I mean, it's the legality that is entrenched in the system to make sure that nothing changes that holds these things back. Because I mean, look, I mean, we could take our area for instance, and I've always thought about this. New York City is is a crap city, and it's the thing is it's barely a city compared to like ancient cities like Istanbul or something, because I think they've got, New York's got like 8 million people. I think Istanbul has like, it's something ridiculous. You look it up, it's like 25 million or something like that. It's absurd. And they make it work. But you know, we could do mega cities. We do sci-fi with mega cities. It's just that how do you do a mega city when New York has its rights, New Jersey has its rights, Connecticut's got right? Because the thing is, you need to the city would need to cross the Hudson. It would need to envelop Jersey City, Hoboken. It would need to envelop many of the places that are not owned by New York State in order to become a true city of the future, in order to do this fanciful, embracing nature, having people spread out so that they're, not so you're not spreading disease, you're not on top of one another, making people actually feel like human beings.
I don't see the difference though. I
What
mean,
do you mean?
because in this area, it's not like in other parts of the country or other parts of the world where you're traveling from town to town, but in between those population centers is vast wilderness. Here it is town after town, shoulder to shoulder. You can't go anywhere without always being in a populated area.
Yes, but those areas operate
what's
autonomously. That's a big difference.
So what's the difference?
That's
if
a
you
massive
just plan
difference.
out the infrastructure.
Yeah, but you can't do that because
collaboration.
you cannot override each town's independence.
It would be a collaboration. I mean, listen,
That's
I'm not
my point.
a huge proponent of states' rights. They get in the way of a lot of things, but I think that you could just have a collaboration to say like this is what it'll look like.
Yeah, you
what's
say
the
it
difference?
like it's the easiest thing in the world, but it's
Well, so
never.
probably
We couldn't even get.
It's probably easier than dismantling states' rights.
We tried to do. Do you remember back in the
We're
early?
still trying to do the tunnel.
Not the tunnel, the walkway over the Hudson.
I never heard about that. I heard about the tunnel.
No, the walkway for bikes and pedestrians to be able to walk over the Hudson from Jersey to New York.
Is that who wants to do that? Is that a thing?
That was a thing. That was a thing back in the day. Yeah,
Who's
back
gonna
under
walk
Bloomberg, I think, actually, like first term Bloomberg.
How long of a walk is that? Seems
it's not that long.
like that people would do like normally as a commute.
Well, you would bike. You could bike. You'd be able to bike from one side to the other.
I mean, I don't know what the return is on that. I don't know how many people would do that. I feel like there would be like not a lot of traffic.
I disagree, but all right.
I mean, is it going to be like sheltered? I mean,
can't get it done. And I know you were talking about the tunnel, which is what for cars, more cars.
You do whatever you want. You put whatever you want in the tunnel. The tunnels we have now are terrible. They do not fit the capacity.
Yeah, not at all.
It's just they're terrible. There's always hours wait. It's just stupid. So I'm in favor of
it's a river and not an ocean. And,
dude, you don't want to do
space.
cars, but walking across a river to go to work, like that's not going to happen. And people
walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to go to work. It's the same thing. Tons of people walk across the Brooklyn. You have millions of people walking across the Brooklyn Bridge to go to work every day.
All year?
All year. Oh, yeah. All year. Absolutely. Just saying.
It's hard for me to argue.
It exists.
I mean, I've been on the Brooklyn Bridge. I feel like the feel I got wasn't like a mass of commuters, but I could be wrong.
I mean, most people bike. It's not people walk, but people bike all year round. So, I mean, you be connecting areas that
you think that was going to replace the tunnel and bridge traffic?
I don't think I don't know if it's going to replace it because of how far people might be coming in order to drive into the city. But it'll.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just don't feel like that's the priority one fix for commuting. I feel like you need to redo the tunnels, you need to probably add more automotive things, whether it's mass transit or individual cars. I just feel like, yeah, the pedestrian bridge sounds nice, but that's not where you're gonna get the
I mean,
most bang for your buck.
you could. I mean, it's always a train issue. We need to completely overhaul the way in which trains are implemented in this country. But
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Anyway,
well, so anyway, I mean, yeah, mega cities. I mean, when I think of mega cities, it's scary because I think of like Judge Dredd type mega cities where they're walled off from the environment and it's just like a cesspool inside. But you're saying no, it's going to be planned so nature has its equal place in there, and that's why it needs to be so expansive.
Yeah. Well,
but then it's just like just redesign the states.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, look,
mega city, just make this redesign. That's my point. Just redesign the whole country at that point. Like, because then only the city's cool, but everywhere else is terrible.
In parts, and again, it's all about funding and people getting. It's as much as we would love it.
Is it like rings on a trees where you start with the city and then year after year
it's a matter of build
another ring and another ring until you just have rings going across the country.
It's something like that. Because the thing is, it's not like we're the only nation with this problem. If you look at Paris has been doing that for the better part of probably 20 years. If you look at the arrondissements in Paris, I mean, they've been expanding steadily every other, I don't want to say it's like every decade or so, but it's been something like that. They've been expanding out and encompassing the wider parts of the area, what was like the suburbs or the countryside, getting that into actual Paris and stretching out the public transport to getting people to be able to make it from one area to the other briskly in a timely fashion, and they're trying to build a newer version of what a city can be. A lot of that includes bike lanes and walking paths that Paris has been investing in heavily. But again, so is New York, but just in the confines of the city to a degree, not even as much as they should be, but that's the thing. It's like you can only control what is yours. It's very difficult to break out and work across state lines, much less party lines, to get some of this stuff done. And that's the other thing. The federal government can't come in and say, "Oh, New York, New Jersey, we're going to fund this project for you," because then Texas is going to be like, "Well, what about us?" Or Utah is going to be like, "Well, what are we getting out of this?" And Nevada, all these states are going to be like, "We want money to do probably not this, but probably something else." They're like, we need to kill more wolves. We need money for that. So I mean, it's sort of like why they're not going to say kumbaya to the elite East Coast getting more money to make mega cities, basically connecting Boston to New York and making it just two massive hubs. Everything else just gets destroyed in between. They're not going to help us do that. Even though that would be better for the environment and work out better for the majority of people on at least on the East Coast per se, at least the Northeast. So
the only other part of this story that I didn't know if we wanted to get into or not was the whole, when I brought up the elephant and pets and food supply having rights. Yeah. That was the only thing I found to be interesting, because it does pose a question that nobody wants to answer, because it would mean you don't eat meat anymore, or unless we had lab grown meat or something like that. Or no one has pets, and that's something I've joked with you about before. Like when we ask each other, what are people in the future going to look back and say, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah.
And when you think about like slavery or something, I'm like, what about pets? Like we owned other animals.
It's going to be something like that. It might be to a degree. I mean,
or is it more of like communal where, you have your stray cats aren't stray cats. They're cats that live in the community, and they may pop by your house every other Wednesday to grab a snack, but it's kind of like they go where they want and everyone just accepts them.
I mean, I think there is a lot of when you get to I think the pets are a little different from things like elephants, animals that have been wild and will continue to be wild as long as we don't overhunt them into extinction. So those protections, that conversation, I think needs to be had separately from the whole pet and domesticated animal conversation, which I think is also
supply, you think?
Right, the food supply in terms of animal husbandry. That is a whole nother conversation. But the thing is, I do believe more rights need to be given to animals in agricultural settings that are essentially food supply. I actually do believe that there should be a greater level of respect for those animals and the sacrifice that they're being asked to make. And I think that it should be recognized. I think that there should be a whole legal system that is enshrined around those rights, and then you have people that, and yes, I know that not the agriculture or whatever, they go around and they make sure that, I don't know what they do, test for
I know, because you see those horrible videos come out, and
yeah,
it's just like,
horrible
well, what
videos,
is
horrible
going on?
videos. Yeah. But I mean, I know that technically, I think there's supposed to be someone that oversees all that to like make sure that animals, I guess, maybe are treated well. But I think it's more about like making sure the farm's up to code, kind of stuff like
Yeah,
that. Like
I think it's more about like the control of disease,
yeah,
and making sure that we're not being poisoned rather
thinking.
than their well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was landing on that. So I mean, I think that a committee that is designated specifically to the rights of farm animals is overdue. And I think that it'll help people have a greater sense, especially if this committee has some visibility in the government. It'll allow people to kind of see what's going on, and to have a greater connection to where our food comes from. It's not just a slab of meat that you pick up in the grocery store. It used to be alive. It used to be running around and eating and living its life and bearing children and doing its whole thing before it was slaughtered and brought to your table. And I mean, look, full disclosure, I'm not a vegan, and neither is Jamie. So we're talking about this as people who consume animals. I still think that there's a better way to do the consuming than the way that it's currently implemented. And I think that we need a hard look at how we do this in society. And I do think that there needs to be limitations on it. I do think that we need to have a system that allows for the animals to exist without having to worry about being burdened by humans. So you just have whether it be by quotas or something of that nature, where you like, it's like every other cow or something gets to live its own life. It's like the cow is just there to either birth another cow, and then it kind of hits the lottery and, and it gets to be free, something like that. I think needs to be in our system, where people can go and say, this is something we're proud of as a means to the future. We're trying to elevate our thinking and how we've been doing this historical process of processing food, something like that. I don't know. It's not fully thought out, but my point is I would definitely land in support of that if there were legislation pushing for it. I have gotten into this argument with regard to pets with vegans before. The thing is, most pets are semi-domesticated, and when I say that, I'm making that term up in order to make this case. But most dogs, I can't really speak to cats, but most dogs will die. If human beings were just to kick them out tomorrow and say, all right, you're free, go and be merry, do what you got to do, most would just perish. And the thing is, vegans, yeah, I've had this conversation.
But you don't have to keep breeding those.
You could stop. Here's the thing.
You don't have to put them down. You can just say you're the last of your generation.
And so you could make anti-breeding laws. You could do that.
Because we made them anyway for aesthetic reasons.
Exactly. And the problem is that you have to, unless you were to outlaw owning pets outright, which is what might need to happen. If you don't do that, all you're going to do is create an underground market. And you're going to take something that is fairly easy for people to acquire, which is a pet, and you're going to make it incredibly difficult to acquire. And basically it just means that only wealthy people will have pets. That's all you'll be doing. You'll just take pets away from poor people. That's all that would happen if you were to start restricting it by like saying, oh, only a quota can be bred of this species or what have you. It's just gonna increase the price for those animals.
It goes like something else that you said, and I don't remember what it was. It was on the pod, and we were talking about how do you force cultural change, and you had talked about, I think, government messaging, intense government messaging can
usually
help.
That's one way,
and can help, or maybe it wasn't that, but we were talking about something, and it was like, well, what forces people to rise above something that has been a norm to say that's no longer in fashion. In fact, I don't like that anymore.
Usually
just stop doing it.
Forced. I mean,
but not every. Yeah. So I guess this is different because it's in a sense an object that can be acquired and not like maybe bad humor that just no longer holds water, doesn't age well or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it's a little different,
Well,
but
comedy is really special in that regard. But yeah.
yeah. So we were talking about stuff, and
Well, I
man,
mean,
I forget what it was about.
this always brings me back to the seatbelt conversation. The Ralph Nader, right? Nader was the one who pushed
Yeah,
seatbelts.
consumer advocate. Yeah.
So you got to use, I mean, I always go whenever someone asks something like this, I go, you got to just look at the history of seatbelts. Culturally, seatbelts were nerds. It's not something you do. If you're cool, you ride in your car without your seatbelt. You don't have a seatbelt in front. Your kids don't have seatbelts in back. You take seatbelts out of the car. It's just not like it wasn't like a manly thing to do to put on a seatbelt at that time. So it was very much baked into the machismo of car culture in America. It's like real men don't wear seatbelts, and no amount of pushing or conversations about the safety of seatbelts was going to change it. So what do? Massive campaign of billboards or what have you, making the car manufacturers install seatbelts in every single make and model of a car. And then you use the state, which is police stopping people who were not wearing seatbelts and ticketing them to the point where it becomes uncomfortable and enough of a nuisance where it was easier to wear your seatbelt than to not wear your seatbelt. So it was a very, what people would call like government tyranny. It was, the government was like, we're going to make you wear these seatbelts in order to bring down the death toll of from car accidents, because people were dying in car accidents needlessly. They were dying in car accidents that they could easily have survived, not only survived, but not even have had to go to a hospital if you were wearing a seatbelt. And that it's that data, along with the maniacalness of one evangelical individual in Nader, to push the country to do it. So that's kind of the way. That's the only way it happens. It doesn't happen naturally. It's always a force.
And I'm sure pets will be, if ever, one of the last things to go, because I mean there are rights, there are animal cruelty rights and things like that. And with pets, it's much more easier to enforce, I think, than with our food supply. So it's
But pets have been around for thousands of years. That's the other thing. Cars have not been around that long. Pets are pets are just. It really is another ballgame. Pets have been around longer than guns. So you have to really look at it this way. We've had pets almost as long as we've had civilization. I mean, I
think it's just a matter of, I'm not saying that you can't have a close relationship with another animal in that way. And maybe, pets in itself inherently isn't bad. It's just interesting. It's interesting that anyone can have one, and that you can kind of almost get one without proving that you can give them what they need. I mean, it's basically like
they do checks.
They do sort of do, but you could get a big dog and put him in a 1-bedroom apartment.
That's true. This is true.
You know what I mean?
It happens. That happens.
Yeah, I know it does. Yeah. I know it does. And so that's what I mean. It's just like, I think it's the respect. And you brought up, you said it well when you were just talking about the food and meat and stuff. And that's like your relationship with food. And I think and people find that, funny enough, when they grow their own fruits or vegetables, and they kind of almost respect, what a handful of blueberries actually means when you just throw them in your mouth. If you ever tried to pick them or grow them yourself, right? You don't get too many. The yield isn't big.
Yeah.
And so, but to have the relationship with your meat products as well, but then to really respect and understand the relationship with your pets and go beyond the vanity of it, and to understand what they need and what you're breeding actually, and what that experience is like for them, even if, their intelligence may not be at a level that we deem worthy of rights, because that seems to be some threshold. So no, I loved everything you said there. And I think what stuck out to me was when you said relationship and the respect and recognition that there is one, because it's so easy to just get a final product and to just do whatever you want with it.
Well, that's the point of rights. Philosophically, at its core, rights are about a relationship. I think that's what people forget in any conversation that you talk about rights. The rights are a mixture of the relationship between yourself, other sentient beings, other beings like yourself, and then and what the culture is accepting as something that everyone should have. That's all they are. So the great George Carlin, I think he has a great joke about how like, screw your rights, they're made up. Like rights are made up. And it's true. It's a figment of our collective imagination. That's all rights are. But part of that is our need for relationships. So rights just help us navigate the way that in which we orient towards our own existence and our own worlds. So giving lakes rights or agricultural animals rights or pets rights, all you're talking about at the end of that, if you take out the word right, is you're just changing the way in which you operate in your relationship. You're just augmenting the relationship between you and the waterway. You're
a mutual agreement, right?
Yeah, it's a mutual agreement, right? You're no longer master. Okay, it's not master slave. It's equals. So you're changing the relationship between the two entities. That's all you're doing. That's all rights are.
It's a great way to phrase it. It really is. Nice. All right. Well, that's that topic.
I think that's all. I don't think we have time to get into because my thing.
Shucks.
Well, my thing is,
how long is your thing?
All right. I know it's going to take long. It's going to be a long episode if we do it, which I do want to do it because the thing is, it does feed in to this conversation.
Oh, man, well, how can you pass it up?
Yeah. So Texas has a feral hog problem. Have you heard about that?
Oh my God! Wait.
I think we might have talked a little bit about it.
There was something. Has it been on the news recently?
I don't know if it's been on the news recently.
I don't know if it was Texas.
There's a lot of it's spreading because of Texas.
Was this on any programs? Was this on like a late night or a John Oliver or something? I saw something on hogs taking over like recently. I don't know where I saw it. I don't know where it was.
I haven't seen it in Oliver, but this story is from April 7th of 2022. And getting into it, the title of the story is in the Texas Standard, which actually is a pretty cool.
You know what? I think it might have been Stanley Tucci.
Oh, he talked about this.
Okay. Did you watch a CNN show?
I did watch a CNN show, but I don't remember that.
They may have been hunting.
Because it was
hogs.
In Italy.
Yeah. They may have been hunting hogs in one of the previous episodes.
Okay.
And they went on to explain how there's been a population explosion and that they are yeah.
All right. Well, look, you're gonna have words. You're gonna have words because this is a really interesting article. So Texas has a feral hog problem, and the reason I actually looked up Texas feral hogs is because my YouTube got a little hijacked because I clicked on one video of a guy trapping hogs, and that led me to another video of people just indiscriminately murdering hogs at night, which led me to another video of people renting helicopters to shoot hogs from the air in Texas. And so I was like, oh, wow. But all those videos, it was like a Vice report from like 2017. So I was like, well, what happened? Like, what happened to the feral hog problem since all that stuff started up? And that's what led me to this article. Texas has a feral hog problem. Hunting them makes it worse. It's not hard, as I go into the article, it's not hard to hunt feral hogs in Texas. That's partly because there are so many of them here, the most of any state, experts think, and partly because it's state policy to make hog hunting as easily as possible. Throughout this article, I think I need to work on how I say hog. I want a better accent for hog, and I think I'm saying it too much like a northerner, and I think this is a great opportunity to say it like someone who's a little bit more native son to an area that has a lot of hogs. So I'm gonna try to work on it. So I'm gonna get there. Feral hogs are the most destructive invasive species in the United States. Every year, they cause over $1 billion in damage nationwide to crops and property. So landowners and government agencies like the U.S. Department of Agriculture are invested in decreasing their population. Texas is a hog hunting paradise. Before 2019, hunters were required to have a license to hunt them, but the legislature got rid of that requirement. Now only a hunter's education course is required. I don't know how long a hunter's education course is. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you probably go up, buy a rifle.
Wait.
The guy gives you some safety questions, and then I think that's a hunter's education.
Different. I do not know anything about hunting. There are different requirements per the animal that you want to hunt? I thought that maybe there were
Yes,
classes of
I didn't
animals
know
like
that.
elephant
No, there's
versus
permits, just like fishing kind
bear,
of thing.
but like,
Yeah. I think they're
so,
permits.
but it's not just paying money and filling it out. Like you need to qualify in some way for different animals.
I thought I
You want to go out and shoot a bird, or you
think
want
it's
to
an
shoot a hog? That's
application.
like two different things.
I think it's an application because there are permits to. I think there's even land use permits as well, depending on where you're hunting as well. Don't quote me on that. Not an avid hunter, but I do believe, because I mean, have you ever gone fishing? Because a license for fishing is similar. There's different licenses for fishing, and then there's different licenses. I think for the areas in which you want to fish can also have a different thing that you might need to acquire. Usually,
freshwater, I think.
Well, yeah, but even when you go to the town, you might have to like stop by like a official like agency hut or something like that, which is usually adjacent either to a campground, as if memory can serve, something like that, in order to pick up like your license for that area, something like that. Anyway, they're usually cheap, and I think that these are cheap too. So we're talking about these licenses, but they're relatively cheap licenses to get. It's just about funding.
So then they just waived that because that was too much of a barrier.
That's exactly right.
So that anyone could just like go out and do it and not be bothered with filling out an application.
That's correct. You don't need any kind of.
Did that help? Was there an increase in hog deaths?
Oh yeah.
From that waiving?
Definitely. There was.
Did you hear? I don't need to fill out this piece of paper. Let's go out. I think that's holding me up the whole time.
I think that's part of the helicopter hog hunting.
I was too lazy to fill out that paper, but now that I can, let's go take a 4-hour drive and slaughter some hogs.
You fly a 4-hour flight.
Because that's
kill some hogs from the air.
That's not too difficult to do. It was the piece of paper that was holding you back. That's correct. Interesting psychology. In fact,
everyone listening to this right now, I at the risk of your YouTube algorithm, and this will ruin it. Believe me, it will. Every other video will be hog hunting and hog trapping. So don't. I mean, you can do this at your own peril, but it is well worth it to watch a video of two people with assault rifles mowing down hogs from the air. Two tourists. They're not even Texans. They're usually just Americans from all parts or from the world that are given rifles.
Hog hunting.
And you get to shoot them from a mini helicopter. And animal rights aside, I mean, objectively, kind of funny, kind of fun. I mean, kind of wild. But
when are they going to start putting guns on drones and you just remote shoot from the convenience of your own home?
All right. I didn't say this is the most efficient way. And then you get
the meat shipped to you.
By the way, this isn't the most efficient way to hunt. This is the most exhilarating way to hunt. Eventually,
I mean, yeah, helicopter rides sound cool. I've never been in one, but it sounds fun. And now you get to shoot things from it.
Maybe you get to shoot from a glider. Maybe you get to launch off and have a little mounted glider, or maybe
a hot air balloon.
The Air Force will get in on this, and they'll let you for X number, maybe like $100,000, get into a fighter jet as you carpet bomb.
I like the World War I era planes with the propellers, and you can just drop bombs. You just kind of like, it's all open air, and you just kind of dropping bombs out.
Why are we doing this podcast? These are great business opportunities. I'm sure we could get the rights to do them in Texas. I'm sure we could rent World War I airplanes, get those little tiny bombs, and let people drop them on hogs. I'm
sure we can get the feet waived.
All right, let's get back to the article.
So, just real quick, did you say this already? Are the hogs invasive?
Yes.
So they're not from there?
No.
Okay.
The idea is to kind of remove any of those barriers to folks hunting pigs, said John Tomasek, associate professor and extension wildlife specialist at Texas A&M University. Hunting is not only inefficient, it can help spread pigs across the landscape, the article goes on to say. If we were to just go out and hunt them, I liken it to taking a dandelion and blowing on it. You've just spread the infestation all across your yard, said Mike Weffer, Wildlife Division Chief for the Illinois Department of Natural Resources.
Because the family unit is scared, so they run and spread?
Feral hogs move in groups called sounders. Here's the little education portion.
There you go.
The best way to get rid of them is by dispatching the entire sounder at once. But if you just shoot one, the rest scatter.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of interesting that they don't return home, that they're like, nope, forget it. Everything I know and everyone I know and everything I loved is now in my past, and I'm just going to venture out on my own into this new area and breed.
What do they sound like? What does that sound like? Sounds like people.
Does it sound like people?
Pigs are smart. Yeah, they're a
Say it
lot like
sounded like
people.
Simba from Lion King. Another animated.
Sounds like
Disney
5
reference.
Goes West. Sounds like an American Tale. I mean, how do you?
But they go with families. They say they go with their families, right? No,
Not most people though. No.
No.
What was it? It was like 99% of the Spanish
Bible was with this
conquistadors.
family.
They were just
Bible.
men. They were just men who left home, left everything they knew to go out and find new.
It's a chain migration, though. They're going to bring their brothers and wives over, and right, chain migration. No, they still wrote. They still sent money back home, right?
Not if everyone died of the Black Death. Now you've got little pockets everywhere else. Makes them harder to track them down and creates new points where they can gain a foothold and start spreading again, said Weffer. The pig problem in Illinois didn't start until about 2009, but instead of making it easier to hunt them, the state went the other way. In many states, you can shoot pigs year round. We don't do that here in Illinois, said Weffer. In Illinois, if feral hogs damage your property, you have to get a permit to kill them. You can hunt feral hogs recreationally, but only for a limited time each year. Right now, there are only 2 known populations of feral hogs in the state. Weffer thinks that limiting opportunities to hunt them has been key to keeping their numbers down.
So over time, hogs will aggregate and consolidate. And when you hunt them, they disperse.
That's exactly
and so the
right.
thought is if you leave them alone,
yeah, that's correct.
They'll congregate, they'll create a community, and they'll maintain their numbers. They will not grow.
There will be more elements to the ecosystem to help keep them in check. But if you keep spreading them into ecosystems that are not used to them, they can run wild.
I think that's the issue on the Stanley Tucci thing. Again, if that is what I'm thinking of, because he's saying that there's no natural predator.
That's
so
correct.
But so then without the hunting, but maybe the periodic hunting is enough of a natural predator. We are enough of a natural predator to keep them in check. Is that the thought?
Well, that's what Weffer is hypothesizing here in Illinois as to why Illinois has not had the population boom of feral hogs that Texas has had. There have been feral swine in Kansas at least since the early 90s, but we're a very different model than most places. Sport hunting of feral swine has never been allowed here. And because of that, they're never really expanded. And I would guess that a lot of Kansans don't even know we have feral swine in Kansas, said Drew Ricketts, Extension Wildlife Management Specialist with Kansas State University. Tomasek, the Texas feral hog expert, said it's unlikely that Texas policymakers would consider implementing something closer to the Kansas model.
Do we know if the Texas hog population is the same as those? Like, are those the hogs? Those hogs migrate over? I'm trying to get understanding. Like,
they have actually.
Okay,
yes,
because
from Texas. Yeah.
Okay, so that they are spreading, and now it's a matter of, okay, are we just in the middle of this transitional period? And they're like, well, our stuff isn't bad, but yeah, you give it time, it will be. You will.
Yeah, but
overrun.
They've had it. I mean, look, they've had hogs since the 90s, and they've never exploded in the way that Texas.
How long it takes for hogs to migrate and population explode? Like, I have no
idea.
Well,
the article doesn't go into when Texas first got their hogs, but the problem has definitely escalated, I would say, in the 2000s, definitely.
So hunting has been proven to be a catalyst for population explosion. It is not correlation, it is a causation.
That is what these researchers or these wildlife experts, these specialists at Kansas State University and in Illinois are basically professing. Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, that's really interesting. Obviously, when you said it, I was like, I got to hear this. And then when you started talking, I was like, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I guess it makes sense in a way where if you have these sounders isolated, they just breed in some way that's manageable, because I guess you can only be pregnant and give birth so many times and so many piglets at once. Is it a piglet? I don't know, with a baby warthog. Mm-hmm. But I guess if you're now dispersing them, that's more interactions between the sexes. Rather,
Well, I mean, I think that the
the opportunity
dandelion,
may not be
yeah,
there.
I think
Well,
the
it's not a dandelion.
dandelion,
You're not just like
but it is
spreading your
similar.
seed.
Well, it is. Well, that is kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, but
here.
there's
That's kinda
nothing
how
needs to be
That's how babies
nothing,
get made. I don't know
but
if
nothing
you
needs to.
took sex ed, Jamie,
But nothing. But that just needs to get planted and watered.
there are a few reasons why this is in response
It's just
to
more.
why
You're increasing the encounters, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a few reasons why in response to the Texas policymakers not implementing a model similar to their to these other states. For one, there is a robust feral hog hunting industry in Texas, a whole economic ecosystem of guides, landowners, and professional hog management services that exists because it's so easy to hunt hogs here. It would be extremely difficult to put that toothpaste back in the tube. It feels like a very little Texas saying there.
Also, there's something ironic about we can't fix the natural ecosystem because of our economic ecosystem.
That's correct.
Yeah. Got it.
So for the foreseeable future, the status quo for feral hogs in Texas will likely stay in place. Lots of hogs running around and lots of opportunities to hunt them. Now, there is a little addendum to the article. The state's problem does not just affect Texas, however. Populations of hogs originally from Texas, this kind of answers your question, have been found in other states. People are moving them across state lines illegally in an effort to replicate the hog hunting opportunities found in the Lone Star State.
That should be a felony. Holy cow.
Doing so could also mean replicating all the problems that come with a feral hog infestation.
How ignorant. Are you kidding me? So first of all, you do answer my question, but kind of for the other reason, because I was like, all right, I understand. Like, if they're naturally migrating over and it's at this slow pace, I feel like that plays into what I was saying before, but if people are intentionally bringing them over, yeah, I don't even know how to process that. My head didn't even go there. Jesus, are you serious? They're bringing it over knowing that there's this issue. So let me ask you this, because I'm trying to wrap my head around what these people might be thinking, and why they chose to ignore what is seemingly an ecological disaster in Texas. In Texas, okay, there's more hogs than you can see the hogs. There's so many hogs, people can see them.
Yes, and even in suburbs. In fact, they've had a few people who died as a result of it.
Are there financial damages that the towns and state is incurring because of the hogs? Yeah, you did.
It's billions of dollars. It's it's over $1 billion.
Okay, but what about this financial ecosystem of hunting? What is that generating in terms of revenue to the state?
That I don't know.
Because I'm just scratching my head of, okay, why would anyone do that, and how could they not be? I mean, are they prosecuted? Is that illegal?
To cross state lines? That I don't know.
With the hogs to try and replicate an ecological disaster.
I mean, there would need to be a federal law against it, which I feel the article would have probably referenced if there was. So there probably isn't. I mean, well, no, they said it's illegal. They did say they're illegally doing it. So there is a federal law that is against doing so. Yes.
Holy cow. I mean, they
said that it's illegal to do it. So actually there is a link to skyrocketing number of feral hogs in the U.S. has become pig bomb. That was in 2019. But yeah, I think it is illegal to transport them.
I mean, I can only imagine out of desperation that that's the only way they can find to make money.
The illegal transportation of wild pigs on the Underground Wild Pig Railroad has caused a massive explosion in population for the animals, in a term zoologist John Jack Mayer has coined a pig bomb.
I wonder does it go into what constitutes the $1 billion in damage? Like, what are the pigs doing? Are they destroying crops?
It's crops. It's like a lot. I mean, yeah, I think like they're a threat to like wildlife, livestock, things of that nature. But this is something that I should add here, because I forgot about this. Feral hogs are an invasive species largely introduced to North America by Spanish conquistadors in the 1500s. So they've been around for a long time and had not reached the height of population that they have gotten to in the since basically hunting them became everything. Yeah.
Why did the hunt start? I'm assuming I assume they were always hunted, but something changed.
It says this guy here in this other article, Mayer, who has been working with feral hogs slash wild pigs for over 40 years, told KSAT that starting in the 1970s and 80s, wild pigs became the second most popular big game animals in North America, second only to white-tailed deer in the numbers harvested annually.
What was there, like the Association of Wild Hog Hunting put out some advertising to gin up interest?
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. It sounds like yeah.
And because there was an influx in hunting and disbursement, subsequent disbursement,
that's probably what we
there
can
was
get
this.
To. Yeah,
there was this side effect that no one foresaw, and no one cared to acknowledge.
More or less.
Wow. Well, there's a good example of great follow up to the other story of like short-term gains and complete long-term ignorance.
Yeah.
Holy cow. The idea that someone would try and replicate
that should be the title of the episode. Short-term gains, long-term ignorance.
There you go.
It's not bad.
I mean, that's just blowing my mind that someone would try and replicate that, knowing that they could decimate their state's ecosystem.
Now, the thing is, in my head, I know how bad this is because of the YouTube videos, but there was one YouTube video I watched of a prolific hog trapper. And in the video, he said that his lifetime hog count, because they count, a lot of these guys are very proud of the count, is that he has trapped and killed 43,000 hogs. And that's an estimate of about 2% of the population in Texas.
How many hogs average in a sounder?
I don't know. You're asking me too many questions.
Oh, I was just curious because if that is his death toll, his kill count,
death toll. Yeah.
We're talking about disbursement. Like, how many hogs has he dispersed? Because that's his impact.
Well, the people who know are the people who are giving me advice on how to trap them.
And then
they're not giving you numbers. They're just saying that the size depends on the trap you're using should be.
Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Well, clearly it's more than two. And this dude's responsible
in the picture here, for a sounder, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 hogs in this sounder.
15
in this picture.
Times the amount of piglets in a litter, whatever it is. I mean, geez, man, that's a lot.
The math consumes us.
Yeah, I'm terrible at math, but that's a big impact. Holy cow. And that's just one dude.
Yeah.
Good for him.
So, all right.
And that's why we need better education, folks. It's hard to even blame someone for not knowing if they were never taught to think about those things. Yeah. Wow. That's a mess to clean up. Sorry, future generations.
We're a country overrun pigs.
Yes, we are. Oh my God.
There's pigs in office. There's pigs on the ground.
Wow. I'm gonna think about that after the pod. That's crazy. That's just a lot.
So, Jamie, where do they find us?
Listeners, listen to me. You can find us at Retraction Media on Twitter. Hit us up. Let us know your thoughts of this episode or any others. Tell your families, friends, your social network to give us a listen as well. If you want, send them your favorite episode as a teaser and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform.
And with that, a very hog happy Retraction out.
You know what I thought you were going to do? From National Lampoon's European Vacation, they win the pig game and they oink, oink, oink. I thought you were going to do something like that.
I actually thought of it. The thing is, in my head, I went, and I thought that might just be a little too gross. And that's why I didn't do it. But if I come across oink, 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 I would have done that.
Okay. No, Porky Pig sign off.
And with that, that's all, folks.
I love it.